Oh, the Sega Dreamcast. What a bittersweet piece of nostalgia you are. We've reached the 20th anniversary of Sega's final foray into the console market, a console that I could say more than exceeded the expectations of its fans that were hyped for the US release on that fateful day, September 9th, 1999. History is already covered in depth about how Sega's swirl-stamped powerhouse, while critically and personally heralded, just wasn't enough to dig themselves out of the hole that the Sega Saturn left, particularly with Sega making decisions that were, to put it nicely, questionable. Today's thoughts of mine aren't to analyze the Dreamcast performance or even of Sega themselves. No, that may happen in the future, but today I'm going to share a story that must be told of how a young G made a few simple yet drastic decisions on 9/9/99, the US launch date of the Sega Dreamcast that changed my gaming life forever. Have a seat, get some popcorn or brew some coffee, cause it's story time. I'm G, and this is the Muse. So the year was September 1999, and I had just started my freshman year of college. I had already partied like it was, 1999, natch. And between schoolwork and participating in our college speech and debate team, I really didn't have a whole lot of time to work too many hours at my job. I had a full scholarship on the line, but looming in the near distance was the launch of the Sega Dreamcast. I read all the gaming news, consumed all the previews and every single bit of hype that I could in leading up to the launch day in the US, and just to see how the first batch of games were going to turn out. Soul Calibur looked incredible, a wonderful rendition that was even better than the arcade version. Power Stone looked like a blast, though it would be overshadowed by its sequel later. I was so hyped for games like Dead or Alive 2 and many other games that were coming through on the launch, and of course one of my personal favorite games of mine, Crazy Taxi! Sorry, I had to do it. But let's be real, you all know what game I was hyped for most for the Dreamcast launch. That was Sonic Adventure. Literally, when I saw the commercials for the game and I got to see what it looked like for the first time, especially the scene where Sonic is running away from the whale, my jaw dropped. On the floor, gaping. I needed this game. Being the huge Sega fan I was, am, and always will be, I was determined to find a way to get the console on day one. It would be the first time I'd ever get a game console on launch day, and I was prepared to sacrifice what I needed to do to get it. However, if my current self knew what I was going to do on 9/9/99, he would give that young G a slap to the face and tell him, be patient, save your money, buy it with cash, and be on your way. But time machines don't exist yet, and I'd rather not change the world by accidentally sneezing on something, so I have to live with the mistakes my younger self made. Like I said, I didn't have a whole lot of money. A Dreamcast would cost me at the time $200, plus the money required for a VMU, the visual memory unit, the Dreamcast memory card cum Tamagotchi, and the game that I desired most of all, which unsurprisingly was Sonic Adventure. But I wanted it, I needed it, and I was more than familiar with one way that I could possibly afford to get a Dreamcast on launch day, and that would be trading my games in at FuncoLand. Again, letting desperation take over my sense of reason, I gathered whatever games and systems I could from my house to trade in. Literally, whatever I could. But one of the last things I grabbed to trade would be what I consider to be one of the worst decisions I ever made, and that would be to trade away my Sega Saturn. I still remember the conversation with my parents I had the day before, and they asked me, "Son, are you sure you want to do this?" I should have taken their words to heed, huh? But it wasn't that I was just selling my Saturn console at the time that was the killer. It was the games that I sold with it at the time of the trade. I had no idea what I was parting with. Right when the Saturn was on its end, I managed to snap up many of the last few US Saturn titles for super cheap. I remember those days that I pulled those price tabs out of the plastic sleeves at Toys R Us. We all remember those days, right? And bringing them to the counter and walking out with top tier games at what would be an obscene bargain today. Games like The House of the Dead, Mega Man 8, Shining Force 3, The Legend of Oasis, Guardian Heroes, Dragon Force, Burning Rangers, and of course, Panzer Dragoon Saga. Yep. I skipped class that day, I know, shame on me, right? Traded them all in, plus many more games that I can't fully remember, to get a Dreamcast, a VMU, an extra controller, Soul Calibur, and of course, Sonic Adventure. You all know I wouldn't have walked out of there without that game. It was a wonderful night for me, basking in the glory of finally being able to play a new Sonic game after waiting for so long during the Saturn's life. Sonic 3D Blast didn't leave a good taste in my mouth, and no, Sonic R doesn't count. Not long after that day though, it finally started sinking in at what I had truly sacrificed. I had sacrificed something that I had no idea would be such a long, hard, and above all costly road of replacing those games. But the deed was done, and a horribly foolish one. I didn't think of the long term when I let all those Saturn games go, and while, hanging on to the past isn't good for you, what you learn from your past mistakes definitely is. I mean, here I am many years later, just 20 years later in fact, just trying to replace pieces of my fractured Saturn collection, and it becomes so costly now. I'm incredibly grateful that I have friends and connections that help me out to rebuild my Saturn collection, which I'm sure many of you know are of obscene prices now. Hell, I'd still be hunting for Panzer Dragoon Saga and Albert Odyssey if it weren't for a few awesome people helping me out. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. I did what I did. Life goes on. And I love you, Saturn. I'll never betray you again. I do love the Dreamcast dearly though, and I don't want my memories of the console to be completely jaded by my mistake on 9999. Sega's console swan song was quite the incredible game system indeed, especially considering the ratio of excellent games on it in comparison to those that were not. There were so many wonderful games on the Dreamcast, including many that have been overlooked that I possibly can't delve into here, so you know what, I'll save that for another time. But I'll close by saying this. The Dreamcast will forever go down in my heart as Sega's little engine that could, but it was a little engine that was unfortunately hampered by stiff competition, previous company stigmas, and just erroneous decisions. Happy birthday, Dreamcast. In my heart, 20 years later, you're still thinking. But do you have any interesting stories of how you got your Dreamcast? What kind of impact has the system made on you in this 20th anniversary? Drop a comment and let me know how much you love the Dreamcast. And if you enjoyed this reflection of mine, let me know with a thumbs up, subscribe, and talk to me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at G2TheNextLevel. And as always, thank you all for watching, keep on gaming, and keep being awesome. I'm G, and I'll see you on the next level.